Well, hello everyone. I'm Steve, and I'm in Nassau, Bahamas at the Atlantis Resort. But we've got a lot of places to go to, so let's go have some fun on the Valley Vlog. Steve Valley here, and I am in Fort Lauderdale, or Port Everglades. I'm on the Sky Princess, which is a brand new ship. It's only a month old. It's a duplicate of the Regal, the Royal, and the Majestic. Same thing, just brand new. There is nobody on this ship. It's going to be 14 days that I'm on here. This is an RFID tag that tracks your every move. Now they can figure out how much you eat and how long you stay in a certain room and all that kind of stuff. Anyway, though, I see they're painting the ship right now, and I might get a time lapse of that if I'm still awake in a few moments. Okay, well, my first time in Nassau was about 8 years ago, and on this visit, while there's been a lot of construction since, it seemed pretty much familiar from the last time I saw it. Prince George Wharf feels like one of the longest wharfs I've walked on. This reminded me that I was probably going to be doing a lot more walking today than I was prepared for. At a crook in the dock, I could see my ultimate destination, the Atlantis Resort, which is about 2 miles away from the wharf. One thing that didn't change from the last time was that the dock always seemed to be under construction. I pretty much figured out that it wasn't because the construction had slowed, but rather that they kept adding on to the pier to allow for more ships. I quickly realized that I should have hopped on one of the many complimentary shuttles they have to get to the main cruise terminal. It was going to be a long walk, and I knew I wasn't going to be taking a taxi just right away. Once I got to the exit gates of the cruise port terminal, well, of course I found a lot of eager taxi drivers, which is standard for any island town. But I wanted to see a little bit of the town before it got too hot out. I could hear some exciting music, and I wanted to find out where it was coming from. I eventually found it in a nearby market. But it wasn't the live music that I was hoping for. It was just a speaker playing a recording of loud music. Oh well, with that bit of reality, it was time to get somewhere a little quieter and a little bit more relaxed. I ultimately found that on Nassau's main thoroughfare, Bay Street, where you'll find lots of clothing and jewelry stores with a few food places tossed in. There was even a colorful salty dog venue, which I thought was a hamburger joint, but was actually a well-known ice cream store. From there, I decided to take one of the side streets, and as I looked towards the other end, I could see a tall tower, a very old and historic tower at that. Christ Church Cathedral is the mother church of all Anglican churches in the Bahamas, Turks, and Caicos. Originally dating back to the late 1600s, this building opened for services in 1841 and is the fifth iteration of that church. It incorporates a tower from an earlier building. There's no tombs as you might find in other cathedrals, but rather various memorials and plaques to distinguished local citizens. I was hoping to go inside and see its pipe organ and mahogany pews, but as fate would have it, I was a moment too late. Oh well. Here's a grainy picture from their website. It was a very good day to be out and walking, especially since it wasn't that hot yet. Another positive was that there wasn't any shortage of taxi drivers should I get tired of being on foot, which I knew was coming at some point. Up ahead, I saw a colorful building that strangely looked like several other versions I had seen in other island towns. This type of building always reminds me of a very famous courthouse from a very famous movie. Okay, of course it wasn't, but it was the world-famous straw market of Nassau. While the building isn't that old, the market is an authentic representation of an industry that's been growing in Nassau since the 1940s. Following World War II, when tourism from North Americans increased, so did island straw craft, like hats, mats, and bags. This market is a good place to find those handmade things, or any small Nassau souvenir you'd like to take home with you. You'll find many of the stalls are stocked by independent vendors. Those vendors also expect you to bargain for the right price, so keep that in mind when you're ready to buy. With my legs officially getting tired, now is the time for transportation. But just as I needed a taxi, they all seemed to disappear. I wasn't the only one looking, too. But it was lunchtime and understandable. Luckily, down a bit farther, I was found by a taxi driver who correctly guessed I was going to Atlantis. He was a good guy, and a very knowledgeable tour guide at that. I was glad I didn't have to walk those 2 miles. We were headed to the big toll bridge that crosses over into Paradise Island. The driver quizzed me if I knew the name of the bridge, since it was named after a famous Bahamian resident who had recently passed away. I had no idea, but quickly looked ahead, and I saw the answer on a large sign. It said, Sir Sidney Poitier Bridge, named after the Academy Award-winning actor who had just passed away in 2022. I'm pretty sure he knew I cheated a bit. He also told me that the toll booth for the bridge was a bit of a pain, since all the steering wheels were on the other side. Luckily, they have a system that's all worked out for that now. After being dropped off and passing through a vaccination checkpoint, I was free to explore the resort. I knew this place was going to be big. I just had to figure out where the front door was. I was told I was dropped off on the casino side, which had a high-end mall attached to it. I didn't care how long I was going to have to walk to get in, as long as there was air conditioning. Once inside, I certainly found the air conditioning, but not that many visitors in this upscale mall and hotel. This really wasn't a surprise, since the cruise ships were just starting to return to business, and I was sort of the first wave of it all. Up ahead, past a few very expensive glass sculptures by artist Dale Chihuly, was one of the largest casinos in the Bahamas. At around 60,000 square feet, I'm sure most gamblers could find a favorite game here. But since I'm not a gambler, I just wanted to see its world-famous aquarium. On my last visit, it wasn't hard to find, but now unfortunately I was told I was going to have to pay for a rather expensive day pass just to see it. This wasn't something I wanted to do for 2 minutes of video. Still, I knew I needed to at least make my way outside the casino. The resort and its 3,800 plus rooms sits on a 154-acre plot of land on Paradise Island. It's home to a golf course, several restaurants, an aquatic playground of 14 lagoons, and an elaborate water system that includes more than 50,000 aquatic animals. This represents 250 marine species. Over by this domed roof was an area I was hoping to visit, but was off limits to people without day passes. That was okay since it was being refurbished that day anyway. Still, it was the Predator Lagoon Tunnel. Here's a promotional video of it. I was able to visit it back in 2015, but not this time. I was just a kid back then. The Atlantis Resort opened in 1998, but parts of the property actually date back to 1968 when it opened as the Paradise Island Hotel and Casino, owned by Merv Griffin's Resort World. So just as my mission was looking bleak, there was hope. I saw some big fish, and I knew I was close. Then I remembered that even though there wasn't the Predator Tunnel, there were several large and even better windows in the hotel's spectacular lobby. I just had to find the lobby without paying for the day pass. Maybe if I just follow the fish. Eventually, I found a pair of doors without a checkpoint. I figured that might be the lobby. It certainly was. It was a lot nicer and cooler, with plenty of room above for an extended selfie stick should I be able to try it out at some point. In terms of aquariums, the one at the Atlantis Resort was one of the most elaborate I've seen. I think there was about 8 million gallons of salt water in its system. That's pretty big. The fish are large too, and you can get right up close to them. They've seen plenty of people, I'm sure. As nice as the resort grounds are, and all the things it offers, for me, this was by far the best part of the resort. It made my elaborate trek all the more worth it. There were fish and species that I had never even seen before, and it was a very tranquil experience. Actually, I lost track of time, which was not a good thing. I had let time slip by. The clock was running, and I forgot the fact that the cruise ship was going to depart Nassau early. It was time for me to think about how to get back to that wharf. I was glad there was plenty of room for my extended selfie stick. It allowed me to film as I made a very hasty retreat. It also gave me a perspective of the hotel that I really wasn't able to enjoy at the time. I liked its lobby a lot. Here's some tranquil music that will help hide the fact of how stressed out I was at the time in getting back before the ship could possibly leave me stranded on the dock. The next level of stress started once I was out where the transportation was. It was all my fault for cutting it so close to departure, and finding a taxi back, well, it could be a whole lot more expensive. It certainly was. No more standard rates. The drivers knew when the ship was leaving, and I was in a pinch. Still, I had to be relaxed. After talking with several drivers, then some negotiating and waiting it out, I found a great driver who had an even nicer taxi than I arrived in, with air conditioning too. I made sure to give him an extra tip. So now, the only question left was I going to make it back on the ship in time? Once back at the dock, of course there were no more courtesy shuttles for the day. Most people were on the ship now. This was going to be tight. I was listening for the last call warning over the jackhammers. Worn out from all the fun, all I wanted to do at that point was see my dad and have dinner. And that part, like always, would be the highlight of my day.